Let's kick it. Atlanta Soccer tonight, live on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. I'm Jason Longshore. This is our weekly show. We cover soccer in Atlanta, all over the state of Georgia, all over the Southeast, all over the United States, honestly, all over the world. That's the nature of this game, isn't it? And that's the nature of all the landscape that we cover on AST each and every week. Typically, we start with Atlanta United, and we will do that tonight. We are going to get into a topic I threw out on my social media at Longshore, kind of envisioning what MLS looks like over the next 10 years. It's a really interesting time in the league as it's celebrating its 30th anniversary. You're in a very special moment for soccer in this country. But you can't lose sight of what can be next. And I think that's the most important element of this special moment with a Club World Cup coming, with a World Cup coming, with the league as financially healthy as it's ever been. What's next? What is the next step? We'll talk about that in the next segment. And for those of you who might be new to the show, the 343, that's what rounds us out. Three local stories, four headlines, three things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. That's the last segment of AST each and every week. Not a lot about the Atlanta United match on Saturday that made me smile. It was a really frustrating match in a frustrating stretch to open the 2025 MLS season for Atlanta United. I think there's a lot of things to talk about here. One, I'm going to follow up from something that I talked about last night with Chris Thomas. Bartosz Slisz kind of went into that aspect of something I would like to see a little bit more from Atlanta United. We'll get into that here in just a bit. But I want to start with just where this team is right now. This team is not at the level that their record would tell you they are. And when I say the level, and look, I know you can throw things at the radio or throw your phone across the room. It's all fine. I don't care. When I say that, we all know in sports, there are teams that are not as good as their record. Balls bounce their way. Things have happened in their direction. You know, they've been good at the right times. There's a million different things. It's sports. It's not an exact science. You're not going to be able to quantify any sport purely by numbers, and that will tell you everything. There's so many things that are up to chance. There's so many things that are up to individual moments, individual performances. There's all that. This team is better than its record. That's something I have to keep in mind when we talk about Atlanta United so far in 2025. To say that is not to discount disappointment, frustration. I mean, if you want to be angry through 8 games, that's your prerogative. I think it's a little early for that, but fine. The reason why those feelings are valid is this is a team that spent a lot of money in the offseason. This is a team that brought in a very talented striker in Latte Lat, who I think has really held up his end of the bargain in general with the goals that he's scored. He was second in the goal scoring race going into the match last weekend. I think, you bring back Miguel Almiron, you bring in Mateusz Klick, you get Ronnie Dyla in the fold, you get a full season of Alexei Moranchuk, you get more coherence in the way that this team was built to be good. They were built to win. There is nothing wrong with frustration about not winning when the expectation is to win. That's valid. This team is better than their record, but they're not winning enough. And that's going to create turmoil. Turmoil can go a lot of different directions. That all kind of played out on Saturday. And it's frustrating because Saturday was a game against a team in the New England Revolution who is not a good offensive team. They did not look good in the offensive half of the field against Atlanta United over the 90 minutes. They scored on a penalty with a player running away from goal, and it's a challenge that it's a striker in Latte Lat making the challenge. He's not a defender. He shouldn't be making that challenge in that moment to begin with, but he is because he's trying to do something for the team. And it creates a penalty from a moment where you're not even in a goal scoring threat. That's the kind of frustration that you're dealing with right now. You hit the crossbar, you hit the post, you had a goal taken away that I will disagree with the interpretation, but I will also say that it is a justifiable interpretation. The offside decision on Miguel Almiron's goal that was taken away in the first half, that look, the game's completely different if you put that in the back of the net. Completely different game. I don't see New England coming back in that game because they're not a good offensive team. You get the first goal, you take the lead into halftime, it feels extremely different. You didn't do that. The goal is called back. It's a VAR situation. I don't like the interpretation of it because I do feel like that the defender was intentional and in control in where he directed that block to. And that is what a good defender will do. It was not a pure deflection. In my opinion, that was not the opinion shared by the referee crew, or we're changing a little bit more of what interpretation is on that deliberate play. But you're down to that kind of level of discussion about that first goal. Second goal, Latte Lots offside. That the second goal that ends up in the back of the net that was called off. All right. Where I talked about with Chris Thomas last night, and I feel like this is important because it was echoed today by Bartosz Slisz. This team needs to create a little bit of an edge. This team needs to be nasty at moments. Well, something that Jurgen Klinsmann mentioned about the U.S. men's national team back in the day, and I very rarely agreed with much that Jurgen Klinsmann said because it got to a point where it felt like it was a lot of talk without a lot of action. A lot of talk in the early years, not a lot of those things actually came out. So you start to tune it out a little bit in that moment with Clinzy, but he talked about this from a US player perspective and what he wanted from his national team. And I felt it and I get it. And I'm coming at this from somebody who does watch a lot of soccer in this hemisphere, where it's played differently than it is in Europe in a lot of countries. The US kind of leans a little more towards the European model and the European mindset, more towards fair play, more towards those elements of the game, and people get really upset about the dark arts. If that game, if Atlanta United was swapped out for Boca Juniors and you were playing Aldosivi in the Argentine league, and that game is getting away from Boca Juniors, what happens? One, there's going to be a really nasty tackle somewhere in that game, and somebody's going to go flying head over feet. There's probably going to be a lot of arguing. There's probably going to be a lot of arguing, maybe with each other. There's going to be an emotional reaction. There's going to be very intentional actions done to change the mood on the field. There was a moment in the first half where a player, Peyton Miller, went into the back of Brooks Lennon as he goes up for a header. It was extremely reckless. It was extremely dangerous. I felt like it was extremely cheap, and there were no repercussions for it. That's not okay. That should not be happening. This team needs to have an edge. We saw an edge today in training, and it was very interesting to see. And I was literally sitting over there saying yes over and over again. I felt like one of the sickos watching this because Bartosz Slisz and Tristan Muyamba got into it in training today. I didn't catch the very, very beginning of it. I believe there was a tackle involved. Both players were on the ground. Both players had to be separated. They went back for a little bit more jawing. They had to be separated again. Now, after all of that, after the session ended and coaches were telling the players, hey, we'll sort this out afterwards. Play. Get over it. Let's play. They did. After it was done, they're high fiving, they're hugging, they're talking about what happened. But here's Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal Constitution asking Bartosz Slisz about what we all witnessed at training today and kind of what he thought about it. This was after Bartosz had talked about the frustration that he has been feeling and the frustration that I think a lot of you out there watching have been feeling. Here's Bartosz Slisz and Doug Robertson from Media Today after training for Atlanta United.
That frustration, what led to that incident out there today?
Yeah, I think so because like I spoke with Tristan after the training that he wants to win the game in even the training. I want to win the game in the training, and now we have to be like the unit on the in the game, and just take it from the training to the games. And now we be together on the pitch and show them who is just better on the pitch.
So it's a healthy frustration.
For me, it's healthy,
Yeah.
and sometimes you need it on, even in the training, uh, because I think it's gonna help the team. And like I said, we are too nice. We are too nice. We have to be more aggressive and show them pitch that they're gonna come to our stadium, our home, and they will not win at this day.
That was Bartosz Slisz speaking with the media, answering questions from Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And I think the last part where Doug asked about a healthy frustration, I think Bartosz was answering specifically about the incident that was in training today with him and Tristan Muyumba. And look, they got over it. I mean, 5 minutes after it happened. So don't take words out of context and don't take things out of context, but you need to see more of those reactions. I said last night, you need to see a bad attitude from this team. There's a different way of saying they need to be, what Bartosz said, more aggressive. They need to be more physical. They need to be very intentional about some of their actions, some of their body language, some of their responses. And that's something that's going to have to change for this team going forward. It's going to have to change this weekend, where you're going to Philadelphia, a team that masters body language, masters intentional actions, masters a bad attitude. This is what Philadelphia does. That's how they overcome not having quite as much talent as a team like Atlanta United. All that matters is the final results. You don't get points in the table for building a great roster. And this is a very, very good roster. I don't know how great it is yet. I think we're about to start to see how great they are internally, how great that heart is, how great that brain is, and how great this group can be collectively with that emotional response to a situation that's not good at the moment. Atlanta United's not getting enough done. They're not getting enough first half goals. They've had 2 leads at halftime this season. That is not enough. That has to change. We'll see if it starts to change this weekend in Chester, PA. We'll be on the air at 6:30 for the Five Stripes Countdown with Garrett Chapman and Madison Cruz. Mike Conti and I will take over for a 7:40 kick. Coming up next on Atlanta Soccer tonight, we're going to get into MLS and what can the league do over the next 10 years to be a better version of itself. We'll get into that after the break on Atlanta Soccer tonight on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.